say, oh, it is sin, pavam, your mobile phone vachirukkiya pavi, they will say, you know, everything is pavam, their brand, their social media is wrong, is sin. But you know, yes, there are some advantages using social media. There are some disadvantages also. What is your take on that? How should we, you know?
I kind of touch on this point, however, he said social media na power. How many of our parents make us feel like phone la irundale edo pavam da pandra madri? And how many of us say, illa, I'm doing something so useful, homework pandre, assignment pandre, and then when they come near us, swipe. So that the next window comes up. How many of us do that? How many of us open multiple tabs and keep? Anyone here with multiple accounts on your phone? You switch accounts? Yeah? But I've done all of that. Now, coming back to his question, there's good and bad in social media. How do I see it? I kind of draw from his answer there. He mentioned a word, boundary, right? But how many of you find boundaries and rules boring? They're boring, yeah? It's not fun to have boundaries and rules, but I'll touch on the Bible. If you see the God we believe in, He kind of loves boundaries. If you see when He created, He made sure each lavanda water does not cross that boundary. If it crosses, what's going to happen? Tsunami. Okay, wind இருக்குல்ல, wind வந்து ஒரு particular speedல போகாம அந்த boundary cross பண்ணி ரொம்ப ஃபாஸ்டா போச்சுன்னா என்ன ஆகும்? Storm. Okay, மழை பெய்யுது. மழை வந்து ஒரு அமௌண்ட்ல நிக்காம ரொம்ப மழை பெஞ்சிட்டே இருந்துச்சுன்னா என்ன ஆகும்? Flood. So from creation we know God's principles, and one thing we know is when you live a life without boundaries, be prepared for a flood to hit you, tsunami to hit you, a storm to hit you. Now applying the same thing to social media. There's good, there's bad, and we've got to draw the boundary. So he mentioned one boundary, which is time. Now, 8 hours spend panama, I'll spend 1 hour. But other boundaries are also, I'm not going to get into sites or things that displeases God. And the madri boundary you will have to set. So coming to your question on this good and bad and how I see it, yes, there's good and bad. நம்ம வந்து bad இருக்குன்றதுக்காக மொத்தமா avoid பண்ண முடியாதுன்னா, but have boundaries. And remember, when you don't have a boundary, as much as it's fun to enjoy the rain as it's pouring and pouring, if it crosses the boundary,
it will be a disaster.
You're going to have a disaster in your life.
And one more thing, like, you know, how do I know, how can I analyze myself that I'm having an unhealthy relationship with the social media?
Any answers? How do we know I have, how many of you will say I have an unhealthy relationship with social media?
Now, that can also be a toxic relationship, you know. Just like you have a coffee with your friend, that can also be an unhealthy relationship with your phone.
Yeah, none of us would. I wouldn't raise my hand because I'm very good at rationalizing my usage of social media. But now, if you have to identify how you have an unhealthy relationship with social media, I'll let you know how. Okay, now, anything that controls another person. Okay, what is that person who's being controlled called?
Very good.
Smart. We have to get them something next time. Yeah. So anything that if something controls us, we are a slave. Now, a new modern form of slavery is social media. So the minute you know your social media is controlling you and you become a slave to it, that's when you know it's unhealthy. Yeah, so anytime when you reach home and your first urge is, I need to get on and check my notification. Or you wake up in the morning and the first thing you want to do is check your mobile phone for that notification. What does that mean? Social media has now control over us. So now, based on this, if you judge yourself and I ask you to raise your hand, how many of you have an unhealthy relationship with social media? Whether you want to or not, most of our hands will go up. First thing we check in the morning, when we get back to school, we run into that room in the pretext of changing our uniform and check our social media. Quite a lot of us do that. So, to know if it's unhealthy or not, think, does my social media accounts have control over me? If it does, I'm a slave. Right? Rather,